What happens when a quick laugh becomes the loudest confession in the room? When dignity is mocked in public, who pays when the truth fights back? What would you do if a cashier laughed and called you a fraud? A hardware counter, fluorescent lights, $100 bill under a smirk. A hardware counter, fluorescent lights, $100 bill under a smirk. The clerk's chuckle spreads, phones out, whispers up, shame filmed in 4K. Manager summoned, a pen scribble turns blue, sirens rumored. We don't serve counterfeiters, he sneers, dignity hits the tile. The bill is pocketed for evidence, and the register slams shut. Truth seeker transition line, stay close, because what unravels next will question everything we thought we understood. Mara Jensen stopped at Beacon Hardware for paint and 2 brass hinges. The store clerk, Calvin Pike, mid-30s, new tattoo peeking from his cuff, held her crisp 100 under the UV light, then under his grin. Fake, he announced, loud enough for the aisle. Heads turned. Mara, a hospital billing coordinator, felt heat climb her neck. She asked for her bill back. Calvin kept it. Policy, he said, tapping a laminated sheet like a gavel. Word traveled faster than the receipt printer. A woman at the end cap filmed the exchange, whispering, counterfeiter. A man in a paint-splattered hoodie shook his head, already judging. Calvin laughed again, reenacting how obvious fakes felt, flopping his wrist like the note was rubber. The manager, Trish Holloway, arrived tight-jawed. We'll call the police, she said. Mara's phone buzzed, a patient's voicemail, then an email from HR about professional conduct reminders. The timing scraped. Calvin insisted the UV pen turned a dull blue, textbook fake. He placed the bill in an envelope, sealed it, and scrawled his initials like a signature of victory. Mara requested a copy. Not for customers, he said. Trish nodded along, reluctantly. 2 teens by the drill wall snickered. Mara offered her driver's license, transaction history, even the ATM camera on Oak Street, anything to slow the rumor. Calvin said, scammers come prepared. Nice try. A security guard hovered near the returns desk, hand brushing the radio. Calvin theatrically explained the store's 3 strikes fraud protocol, hinting corporate bans and trespass. Mara's cheeks burned. She remembered the ATM's crisp bills, the teller's verification earlier that week. Please check your safety, she said. You'll find matching hundreds from the same batch. Calvin chuckled, eyes darting toward his drawer. We're done here. He wrote suspected counterfeit on her receipt in thick, accusing ink. Mara refused to move aside. Trish, trying to be gentle, asked her to wait in the break room for the police. The camera domes in the ceiling watched everyone without blinking. Calvin opened his till to serve the next customer, sliding something quick to the side before the drawer shut. Mara noticed the twitch. A mother with a stroller frowned at Mara, sympathy overshadowed by fear. The store's bust end, a hush before judgment. And then, the knock at the door, froze every breath. Detective Elena Ortiz entered with a quiet authority that calmed the shelves. She listened, took names, and then asked for the envelope. Calvin produced it like a magician finishing a trick. Ortiz examined the seal, then the store's counterfeit policy sheet. I'll need your drop logs, surveillance, and the cash drawer count from opening, she said. Calvin's eyes thinned. Mara mentioned the ATM at Coastal Credit Union. Ortiz nodded, noting the time. We verify both streams, she said. Ortiz requested access to the office. Trish hesitated until Ortiz reminded her that cooperation reduced corporate liability. Inside, the detective watched the time-stamped feed, Calvin taking Mara's bill, sealing it, then, 2 minutes later, retrieving a different bill from his pocket and resealing. The angle was subtle, but the hand motion had a telltale frame. Ortiz paused the video. Run your bill serials, she told Trish. Compare everything you dropped today. Calvin swallowed, Adam's apple stuttering. Mara waited near aisle 12, hands clasped, breath measured. A customer approached to whisper, "Sorry about earlier." "He does this power trip thing." Mara nodded, grateful. Ortiz returned, requested Mara's ATM location and time. "Oak Street, 8:42 a.m., Mara said. Ortiz's partner radioed the bank. The ATM's cassette serial range matched new Federal Reserve notes issued last week. If Mara's 100 came from that batch, the question wasn't ink color, it was who swapped what, and when. Out front, Ortiz requested a drawer count. Calvin performed with irritated flair, calling out denominations. Ortiz watched his hands, the camera watched everything else. The totals were short, $80 shy. "Happens," Calvin shrugged. "Busy shift." Ortiz asked about his pocketed bill during the earlier customer purchase. Calvin feigned confusion. Ortiz printed still frames, his hand, the pocket, the envelope. Mara felt a current change direction, the first warm breeze after a cold accusation. Trish, now paler, called corporate compliance. Ortiz requested safe counts since Friday. Numbers rarely lie, patterns never do. Calvin's jaw set, muscles clenching. He insisted the UV pen was definitive. Ortiz countered, counterfeits sometimes pass pens, real bills sometimes misread, chain of custody matters most. "This envelope," she said, "is compromised." Calvin chuckled again, smaller this time, glancing toward the breakroom door, calculating exits like a man measuring aisles for their blind corners. Ortiz's partner returned. The bank confirmed a sequence of serials dispensed within a 10-minute window. The ATM cameras caught Mara taking cash, the crisp hundreds clearly numbered. Ortiz held up a printed list. "If your envelope's bill doesn't sit in this sequence, it didn't come from her." Trish unlocked a back register log. A cashier had flagged Calvin last month for short drops. The rule he cast on her was now aimed squarely at him. Ortiz opened the envelope under a document camera. The 100 was older, a 2013 series, corners softened by years. The ATM list showed 2017 series, fresh from a reserve pack. "Not her bill," Ortiz said. "So where did this one come from?" She asked for Calvin's pockets. He balked, then consented when Trish cited store policy for on-site searches during investigations. Ortiz retrieved 200s folded tight, edges damp. "Chain of custody," she said. "Your chain breaks." Trish pulled the last 3 days of drawer snapshots, Calvin's till consistently ended light during peak hours, then balanced after solo cash room time. Ortiz mapped timestamp overlaps with camera angles, tiny, telling migrations, a bill palmed under a receipt, a pocket smooth as silk, a switch by the envelope rack. The UV pen was theater, the envelope, a prop. Mara leaned against a shelf, relief rising and rage pacing, wanting both apology and explanation. Calvin tried indignation. He complained of entrapment, said the policy empowered him, and said scammers staged bank receipts. Ortiz stayed cool. "You sealed an envelope, then unsealed it," she said, pointing at frozen frames. Trish stared hard at the laminated counterfeit protocol Calvin loved quoting. "It doesn't say employees can keep customer money," she murmured. Phone cameras turned back toward him, the room's sympathy sucking away like a tide from a stranded rock. Ortiz called for an evidence bag, reading the serials off the pocketed hundreds. The numbers matched bills from yesterday's returns, not today's ATM sequence. "Recycled from customer refunds," Ortiz said. "You're laundering legit bills into your pocket." Calvin's bravado frayed. "I made mistakes," he said, suddenly playing. Pressure, hours cut, rent due. Mara felt the complicated sting of his confession. The snickering teens went quiet, lesson creeping up behind the spectacle. Corporate rang back. Trish's face hardened listening to loss prevention. Calvin's register history glowed with red flags, high variance, aggressive policy confrontations, dramatic counterfeit calls that never yielded actual police reports. Ortiz asked the question that ends charades, "Where's Mara's 100?" Silence settled like dust on a long shelf. Calvin glanced at the office. Ortiz gestured. He led them in, opened a maintenance drawer, and produced a crisp note, 2017 series, matching the ATM sequence. The room's oxygen shifted. Ortiz held Mara's original 100 beside the counterfeit evidence. The side-by-side looked like a before and after of truth itself, bright against dulled, new against worn. Calvin's smirk died. He started to talk fast, building flimsy bridges over widening water, training gaps, mixed drops, everyone does it. Ortiz photographed everything, sealed, logged, and steady as a metronome marking the end of pretending. But hidden in plain sight was the truth no one wanted to see. Ortiz replayed the earliest clip, Calvin's first laugh. She let it run muted, then unmuted, letting the room hear every casual humiliation. "Hear that?" she asked. "That's not policy. That's a performance." Calvin flinched. Trish, voice low, terminated his shift pending investigation. Ortiz read him his rights, petty theft plus attempted fraud. Mara looked at the phone screens that had judged her, each now capturing accountability, turning, finally, toward the right face. Back on the floor, Ortiz addressed the small crowd. "This customer's money was not counterfeit. The store will return it immediately." She handed Mara the crisp 100 in a labeled sleeve. Trish apologized, eyes wet, not performatively but like someone who'd learned where a blind spot lived. Calvin stared at the tile grout, hands shaking. Ortiz told him the county would consider charges, that he'd need counsel. The envelope policy sheet seemed suddenly thin. At the service counter, Trish reversed Mara's purchase, then rang it properly, discount applied, apology handwritten on the receipt. Ortiz asked Mara if she wished to make a statement. "Yes," she said, voice clear now. "I was humiliated. In my town. In front of strangers. Over a lie." Ortiz nodded, recording. She slid the still frame of Calvin's switch beside the serial list. And in that instant, the room fell silent, every eye turning to the truth. Corporate authorized restitution, the purchase comped, an additional gift card, and a formal letter of apology. Trish scheduled staff training on chain of custody and respectful verification. Ortiz walked Calvin out, not paraded, but visible, accountability without spectacle. The crowd dispersed, lighter. Mara stood straighter, the weight of rumor lifting like fog under noon sun. The laminated sheet came down, a new protocol, one signed by counsel, not pride, was pinned in its place. That evening, Mara stopped at Coastal Credit Union. The teller verified her bills without theatrics, stamped her receipt, and wished her well. She told her husband, Daniel, everything, leaving out nothing, because surviving humiliation requires telling it whole. A neighbor texted the aisle 12 video, now captioned differently, "Clerk caught swapping bills." Mara watched once, then twice, then put the phone down. She made tea. Dignity, she realized, sounds like quiet after thunder. Weeks later, the hardware store's window held a small sign, "We verify respectfully." Inside, a new cashier checked bills beneath steady light, not a smirk. Mara passed by with a gallon of eggshell white, nodded to Trish, and left. The final image, 200s on her kitchen counter, hers and the one that tried to steal her name, flattened beneath the paint tray, transformed into something useful. Lesson: the laugh that shames another often masks a theft, of money, of truth, of dignity. Verification without respect is just theater, evidence without integrity is nothing at all. If stories like this resonate with you, subscribe now. Because here, every story uncovers truth, delivers justice, and leaves a lesson worth remembering.